Yeah, so sometimes, I make a lot of jokes and there's a thing at the front and it's funny and ha ha ha. But sometimes the videos I make are kind of like serious. And and this one's like that. So, yeah, this duck walks into a bar.
Guitar Stuff with John!
Welcome to another edition of Guitar Stuff with John. This episode is going to be very special. Part of the reason I'm doing this video and have wanted to do this video for several years now is because of Norman Boucher. Now, many people are not aware of Robin's history. Robin comes by his skill as a guitar builder very honestly. It was in his family. And there's a gentleman that every time I talk to Robin about this man, Robin will often shed a tear because he loved him so much. And he's told me, little stories from his childhood of being in the guitar shop with his uncle, Norman Boucher, right? Norman is an incredible story and a huge part of guitar history in Canada and North America. I'm going to tell you sort of an abridged story of Norman, Mr. Boucher, the original man. Some of it's anecdotal, some of it's, culled from different stories I've been told by the people involved and all these things. But I thought it needed to be told because it is so important to the history of not only Robin's business, but guitar players and guitar builders in North America in general. This is a very important story, and it ties into a lot of other things that I have coming up on the channel that are going to mirror sort of this story. So to make it condensed as possible, Norman Boucher started the first boutique guitar shop, a single bench builder guy, just in the middle of nowhere. The very first one that was ever really started in Canada in 1965. There were other builders, of course, around, but he started this as a truly, build them, ship them anywhere deal. And he began building guitars that to this day, some of those original Normans, right, like the B50, the 12-string that he built. There's several of the models that he made that are today still sought after because they were so well built, they survived, 60 years and still sounded incredible. And he was a very, very good guitar builder. There's no question about that. And so somewhere along the way, and this is when Robin, was in there. Robin was a boy in there, watching Norman build these instruments. And he was exposed to it, and exposed to the love of guitars and guitar building. Right. So another reason why we must honor Norman, is one of the factors that caused Robin to go on, 50 years later and start building some of the best acoustic guitars on the planet, right? So it wasn't just an overnight thing that just happened accidentally. Robin was right in the middle of the birth of single bench building guitars in Canada, right? So at some point in time, tragedy struck, and Norman's shop burnt to the ground with everything in it, all his wood, tools, everything lost. And basically, our other friend in this business, Mr. Godin, right, who went on to actually own all of the companies that came out of Quebec, basically, Seagull, Art and Lutherie, Simon and Patrick, on it goes, right? Like this man was a businessman, and so he offered to help Norman restart and continue building the guitars. And so basically what happened was that Godin took over Norman, and he began building Normans with Norman's recipe, kept the name alive, right? Now, there was a lot of other things that happened in those interceding years that caused, Norman to fall out of the business entirely. And his son, Claude, 30 years later, decided to start his own company, which he called Boucher Guitars, which was then taken over by Robin. And here we are today with Boucher, right? But the reason I needed to tell this story was that, number one, I want to thank, as big as Godin is, and sort of a faceless corporation, which it is, it's a huge, huge company, and they're into everything. You have to give props to Robert Godin for keeping the Norman name alive to this very day. Normans are being built, and they're now being built, I think, under a new set of protocols, including using Norman's original designs for bracing and wood choices and design, and they are paying tribute to this man who is not with us anymore, of course. And the idea that a company like that, after all this time, is saying, you know what, we still need to keep that name alive, it's important, right? That's pretty awesome. Even though it's not really them anymore, but it's still got the name, and they're still paying attention to how it was done. And obviously, the fact that it birthed the love of guitar building in Robin, and how much he loved his uncle, I had to pay tribute to this guitar, and to the man who invented these things, Norman Boucher. And I'm going to show you an instrument right now that is brand new. It comes from Norman, manufactured by Godin, of course. But this is the ST50 Cherryburst, and it is a maple dreadnought, a beautiful maple dreadnought. And when I first saw these, all I could think was, man, that guitar looks so retro. This guitar looks and reminds me of these instruments as they were 50 years ago, right? And of course, this is pretty well the top of the line for what you can find under the Norman name. You can find these guitars under the Godin name and different things, but the Normans are built with the type and size of bracing that Norman actually used. All these different things that they decided to maintain and coalesce into a line of guitars that harkens back to this man, right? Who my friend Robin Boucher loved with all his heart. And so I'm paying tribute to not only Robin, but his uncle Norman by showing you this guitar. And listen to this thing ring. There's something very Boucher about it. This thing is a cannon. It's absolutely ridiculous how nice this guitar is. And the price is right. You just can't go wrong. It is a handmade instrument. They're making them by hand. It's about $2,100 Canadian after tax. This one comes with the full Anthem system on board, which I will probably pull out and put a K&K or an SGI in it. But it's a beautiful instrument, and it reminds me, every time I pick it up, I think, this is the thing that Robin saw when he was a young man. This is the stuff that he was hearing and thought, he said, I can build a guitar like that. So, some things about this guitar are so reminiscent of how Boucher guitars are today. The neck profile, the smoothness and the ease of play, and just beautiful. It sounds and looks really old, and that's what I love about it. And it's very, very, very well made. This guitar is well put together. They have truly honored Norman in the building of this guitar. It doesn't sound like any of the Godin line, any of the Simon and Patrick, Art and Lutherie. It doesn't sound like any of those. It sounds like something completely different and much older. Such a great midpoint, and the bottom end is just smoking. It's got this big old vintage sound. Anyhow, let's take a close look at it. The ST50 Cherryburst by Norman, as translated by Godin Guitars. Let's take a look. Yeah, so here we are at the headstock of the Norman ST50. We see the dating there, established 1972. That's when Mr. Godin sort of took over the project with Norman. And one of the things I love about this guitar is the color. He's got there's a maple plate on the headstock, and it's the most brilliant, rich, red burgundy color in it. And these full mammoth pegs, man, they just set off that whole scene. Beautiful, antiqued. They look like antique brass. They're just gorgeous. They work like a charm. Bone, nut, and rosewood fretboard with these really interesting markers. And I'm not sure what this material actually is, but it looks super cool. It has a really unique color to it. It almost has a green or blue kind of tinge to it. It's not mother of toilet seed proper, but it's something. It's some material that I've never really seen on another guitar. And it goes all the way down to almost the last fret of the tail. And if we take a close look at the top, we see a beautiful Sitka top. And there's the burst is so good. So good. Just gorgeous. And this rope purfling around the sound hole, and there's our stick hair, handmade. A sort of a guild style shape pickguard, regular 2-line purfling, if I can get the focus, there we go. And then our sides are maple. I'm not a big fan of this strap button placement. It should be over here somewhere, but it's not, it's there. But there's a block inside, of course, holding that there. So it is secure, but I'd rather not have it there. It makes me worry. It's bound in sort of a rich color. It is plastic binding, but it's It's a beautiful color. It doesn't look cheap, that's for sure. We see the binding seam just there, dead center. Well done. There's a little bit of an issue there, but that's no big deal. Most guitars have some kind of thing. Look at the maple in this. Oh, God knows. Look at it. Like the stock, this wood stock is incredible. It's just a beautiful, beautiful flame. And again, the Cherryburst is. This camera doesn't do it justice. It's a lot redder than it looks in this. And there we go. There are sides again. And it has a satin finish. Looks like a maple neck on it. See the grain there. And there's our heel cap, which is rosewood or possibly ebony. Look at this thing. Oh. The neck, the finish on this neck is really good too. I love it. Slick, slick, slick. And there you go. There's the Norman ST50 Cherryburst with onboard LR Baggs element system, which I have not tried. I'm sure it's fine, but I'm just not such an anti-fan of pickup systems with batteries. I love the sound of LR Baggs, but I don't like the battery. Too hard for me to get my hand in this little hole. So there you go. There she is in all her beautiful red sunburst glory. Norman, the ST50. So there you go. You're literally seeing a piece of history kept alive by the Godin brand, and a tribute not only to Robin's Uncle Norman, but a tribute to the very first boutique builder in Canada. 1965, it was started. A very similar parallel to our friends down at Gallagher. J.W. Gallagher started his company in 1965. And the similarities between Norman and J.W. are scary. How their backgrounds and how they came to be who they were and what they did, and even the troubles and tribulations that plagued both companies right up until present day, when people like Robin took on the Boucher name and the Boucher guitars, and David Mathis took on the Gallagher name and the Gallagher guitars, and have kept them alive and kept the idea alive. So if you have a chance to pick one of these up, mind you, they are made in a factory, so they're all going to be slightly different. But all the ones of these that I've played, these ST50s, they all seem to be really consistent. And they're a beautiful guitar and really easy to play and just easy to love. It's an instrument you just want to pick up all the time because it feels and sounds like the workhorse that it is, right? It just plays so cool. It's just such a gutsy, earthy sounding guitar. There you go. There's the Norman ST50, and I want to send this as a special dedication for this guitar out to Robin, and to let him know that I loved his uncle too, and so did a lot of Canadians. Remember the original Norman guitars and how much it meant to have a Canadian-built guitar. because it wasn't happening back then. To have a luthier in our country, building guitars as good as he did, and for us to see that maple leaf on the sticker inside or somewhere on the guitar, it was awesome. And Robin is doing a fantastic job of maintaining this legacy. Mr. Norman Boucher, our first guitar shop in Canada. Anyhow, I love you guys, and I hope you like this guitar. And I obviously have to send a special shout out to Long McQuaid where I bought this, and a special thanks to Godin for continuing to honor Norman. And we'll see you next time on Guitar Stuff with John. Don't forget to hit subscribe or click or like or blah or the, because you know what? Because guitar. That's why guitar. See you next time.